Hello, fellow fantasy sports fans. Welcome to MFSN, the Hub's I almost said fantasy baseball. Can you believe it? Fantasy football waiver wire show. It is week 2. I'm Dr. Dan Ratner. We're here every Monday at 8:45 p.m. Eastern, 5:45 p.m. Pacific. No, 8:15.
8:15. You're on fire.
What is happening today? Now, that was my notes that made the problem. We're here at 8:15 p.m. Eastern, 5:15 p.m. Pacific. And the man who lovingly corrected me, Kasey, Vlad to the Bone, Scheinvold, and Ross the Boss.
Hey, everybody, I'm Ross the Boss, and I want to talk fantasy football waiver wire with you, Cowboy. Wow, it was a great weekend of football. You guys missed it. It was unbelievable. It was comeback. Let's talk first about your Cleveland Browns losing to the Jets. That's an embarrassment that I can never tell you that would never happen in a million years, but it happened, Dan Radner. It happened. Tell me why you lost.
No, I have to make listen, I'm a writer and an editor, and I have to edit what you just said. I did not lose. I am not even part of the Browns anymore. I am wearing a Houston Oilers shirt.
You live in Cleveland.
Because the Browns are done. I'm done with
You live in Cleveland. You go to Browns games.
I do live in Cleveland.
You wear Browns jerseys.
I am not going to
your
a
closet
Browns
right now, I can find a Brian Sipe jersey right now. If I go in there, I swear.
No. Hold on. I'm still a fan of Brian Sipe and Bernie Kosar. I'm a fan of the Browns from before. That's not gone.
A Marty Schottenheimer fan.
But exactly. I mean, look, I don't know when it was that the Browns died for me, but I'm in search for a team, and I'm leaning towards the Buffalo Bills. And I do apologize, Buffalo fans, because if I join you, it's going to be trouble.
Okay, so that was a great game. Then I watched the Raiders at home against the Cardinals. This Murray kid is like a video game. I mean, this guy he was like running around like no one can catch him. The game went into like overtime. The Raiders lost on a fumble, and the guy ran it in for a touchdown. It was unbelievable. The other great game that I loved watching was Lamar Jackson versus Tua. KC doesn't think Tua's that good. He had 469 yards, 6 touchdown passes, and KC Scheinfeld still thinks Jimmy G's better. It's unbelievable.
Again,
go ahead, Kasey.
For some clarification, I'll do my editing here. Tua is my first quarterback in my dynasty league, so I am absolutely a Tua fan. But second, in the discussion today, we were talking about who to put on the cover, and our general rule is the waiver wire pickups have to be 60% or less ownership in Yahoo, and Tua was at 62% ownership. So I didn't think he qualified. It had nothing to do with my beliefs about Tua. Hell, I was born at the University of Alabama while my dad was a graduate student there. So I'm a Tide fan through and through. So Tua is high up on my list. So is Jalen Waddle, for that matter. I just didn't think he qualified because of his ownership.
I did the little Waddle for you because you said Waddle. So all Chubb had to do, Dan Ratner, is like not score, just sit on the 2-yard line, and they could have ran the ball out, and the Cleveland Browns win. But instead, he has to score because he's on Dan Ratner's fantasy teams. So Chubb scores, and that way you get the points. That way the Cleveland gets the loss. So there you go, Dr. Dan Ratner. Hope you're happy.
It is ridiculous. And listen, this was the most painless, ridiculous Browns loss I've ever had because I do not care anymore.
First of all, I just say one name.
You can test this out. Guys, fans out there, you can watch me. I swear to God, unless the Browns become a totally different team and start, I don't mean like a different team, but if they've
done that before. They're called the Ravens.
Well, and then when that happens,
if they pack up the moving truck and move to Baltimore again, you'll become a Browns fan again.
No, but listen, I was hanging out with some poker buddies the other night. And they said, you've got to start the Browns defense in fantasy. And I was like, are you kidding? Are you kidding? You're going to start the Browns defense. And it's not just that I wouldn't start the Browns defense in general because they're like Swiss cheese. But I also wouldn't start the Browns defense against the Jets. And I know everyone's saying, that's the team to start them against. If you're not going to start them against the Jets, who do you start them against? And the answer is no one. Because I knew the Jets would win this game. And I said to them, guess what I said? I said, they will win this game by 1 point. I guarantee you. And the amount of gloating I'm doing in this email.
I can tell your face is glowing, you're smiling. I can tell you're happy.
The Browns gave me this gift. Because as a Browns fan, listen, the announcer said, and Cleveland fans are stunned. And I was like, we are not stunned. We knew this is exactly what we knew was going to happen.
I have visions of you as like Chris Berman when he would be the Swami back on the ESPN football days.
I miss those days, Kasey. Should we talk quarterbacks?
Let's talk quarterbacks. People came here to find out about waiver wire.
Yeah, I know. I just thought it's such a great week of fantasy, and it was so much fun to watch. And right now there's 2 games going on, so let's make this quick so I can go back to watching.
Let's do it. Okay, so Tua is our cover boy. He is 62% rostered, but the fact is, after what he did last week, we just felt we had to mention him.
And let me just mention something. He's available. I know he was picked up a lot in leagues that you can pick up players like right after kickoff. But there's a lot of waiver wires that you can't pick up until Wednesday that he is available. I mean, I'm telling you, he's available in like 4 of my leagues. So, I mean, this guy is available. And something, like I said, beginning of the season when we did our early shows, I said, Hill, Waddle, who's going to be throwing the ball? Tua. So I think maybe Tua should be on your list to draft, right? Yeah.
You did say that, and I give you full credit for it. Now, do you think Tua is going to be better rest of season over Trevor Lawrence? Who is?
I think he has better. I think he certainly has better weapons for the. I mean, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill. Like, you're not going to find a faster duo of wide receivers. And like, who do you cover in that offense? Even Gesicki got a touchdown out of the tight end position. You have Mostert and Chase Edmonds in the backfield. That might be the fastest offensive team in the league right now. So why wouldn't? I mean, I like Christian Kirk. I've drafted Christian Kirk. He had a good game too, a couple touchdowns. But I mean, who else do they have really? That's
Marvin Jones. Oh, maybe not. Okay, you're right, Kasey. Okay, you got me.
I mean, Travis Etienne is a nice player as a third down back. They clearly are going with James Robinson as the feature back this year.
So it's his job to lose now.
So Etienne doesn't have as much value, and he's your pass catcher. So I would rather have Tua.
I agree. I think Tua's going to have a great year. He's leading the league in yards right now, which is unbelievable.
Well, it'd be hard not to when you throw for almost 500 in 1 week.
I mean, I think there is a decent chance, though, that Tua and Trevor Lawrence both end up in the top 12 in quarterbacks.
Sure.
Which, they're the young quarterbacks that you hope to see rise up. Meanwhile, Trey Lance went down with an injury, so he's not going to be rising up this season. That was
Jerry Jeudy went down with an injury. Connor for the Cardinals is hurt. I mean, there were some major fantasy injuries during this week, and Gabe Davis isn't even playing today for Buffalo. So there's a lot of stuff going on. You got to keep track of who's active, who's not active, who's questionable, and who's doubtful. You got to keep track of this till Sunday.
So let's weigh in about Jimmy Garoppolo, since he's obviously going to be the starting quarterback of the 49ers. It's amazing how that happened. What do you expect from him for the rest of the year?
I look, this was the where the argument started, I think, via text earlier today, was he mentioned Tua. I didn't think he qualified because of the 62%. I think Jimmy Garoppolo, look, they played in the NFC Championship last year. He is not a bad quarterback. He is a very good quarterback. And I think their weapons will all do much better under Garoppolo than they were going to do under Trey Lance. Trey Lance might be the future. But right now, Ayuk will be better. Samuel will be better. I mean, whoever ends up healthy, Wilson right now in the backfield will be better because Garoppolo is a more versatile quarterback with regards to he can throw the ball. So I'd
rather have Carson Wentz and I'd rather have Jameis Winston right now than Jimmy Garoppolo right now. That's my opinion. I think Wentz is having a great year.
I think Wentz. Look,
and Winston is throwing the ball. He's in the top 10 for quarterbacks when it comes to throwing the ball. He's throwing the ball. And I don't think, with Shanahan and his game plans, he doesn't really go he's more of a run guy. You know what I mean? It's not like he's going to throw the ball that much compared to these other quarterbacks.
But in fairness, that's what they said about, Mike McDaniel's a direct kind of coaching tree hire from that Shanahan tree. And look what he just did in Miami. It's not that they don't coach passing the ball. I agree with you. I think Wentz, heck, the Commanders have 3 receivers in the top 36 on the season this year, and Logan Thomas is a top 15 tight end. So Carson Wentz is spreading the ball out. But I'm not saying that Garoppolo is going to be better than Wentz, although we saw what Wentz did the last 6 or 7 weeks of the year last year. I'm saying he's better than Trey Lance for the San Francisco 49ers and probably for fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think if you're in a super flex league, I think you definitely should pick up Jimmy Garoppolo. But if you're not in a super flex league and there's a lot of quarterbacks to choose from, like let's say Winston or even Wentz, or maybe I like Jared Goff. I still like him. I think he's going to be good this year. I mean, St. Brown is like one of the best receivers in the league. I was looking at his stats for the past 8 games. It's like everything's over 100 yards. Everything's a touchdown. It's unbelievable, this guy.
It's almost like he's a god.
I mean, it's like we really I drafted him in some leagues, but he should have been like drafted as a top 10 receiver, and no one did it.
It's because of the funk of the Lions. But I do think that he's clearly emerging. Kasey, I know you're happy about him because you have him in Dynasty.
I do.
It was a good pick. I would say, though, of the guys that are floating out there under 60%, Trevor Lawrence is still my guy. I know he doesn't have the weapons, but I think that he's really rising up the charts. Meanwhile, Matt Ryan sure did lay an egg.
Ooh, wow, that was Indianapolis. How about JT? How about him? I mean, how about
Well, in fairness, now I'm not recommending Matt Ryan, but he didn't have Pittman. He didn't have Pierce. He was throwing to the practice squad in an NFL game.
I agree, but again, you have Jonathan Taylor, who's the number one
9
pick
carries.
In fantasy football.
9 carries they gave him because they fell behind 9 times.
9 means no one German.
9 times.
But Kasey, you said JT was your number one pick in fantasy football, and he proved you wrong. That's the reason you don't really load up on running backs that much in the first round. You go after wide receivers.
And listen, if you're looking to start a quarterback, just see who the Browns are playing and cue it
up.
There
you go.
Yeah, Joe Flacco, man. 4 touchdowns, 307 yards.
The Browns can make anyone look good unless they're on the Browns. And
but the Jets play the Bengals maybe you should Joe Flacco. Maybe you're right.
No, I wasn't saying start Joe Flacco. I was saying start whoever's playing the Browns.
Oh, got it. Okay. Is there any other quarterbacks we didn't mention that you guys like?
I think we've covered quarterbacks.
Do you guys like Josh? I was watching Josh Fields play against Green Bay last night.
Didn't he have 70 yards passing?
Yeah, he had a bad game. I mean,
he's a talented kid. I don't understand. I watched a little bit of that game. I don't understand what their offensive scheme or game plan is. Watching them, they just look lost. The routes they were running looked weird. I mean, Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery had a really good game, 107 yards or something like that. But Herbert looked like the more explosive of the running backs. I don't think they have a good passing offense. I like Josh Fields.
The problem is Mooney is not a number one receiver. I mean, that's the whole problem. And they all thought, he can fill in Allen Robinson's shoes easily. No, he can't. Mooney cannot get open. I mean, for the life of him. I mean, if you watch him.
I agree. But I think the Bears have lots more problems. That may be their biggest. But I think Fields, I'm not a believer that he's going to be able to make it. I wish him all the best. I hope I'm wrong. But I just don't see it. Guys, let's move to running backs. We got a lot of guys to cover in the waiver wire. There were injuries, as we talked about. There's guys rising up the charts. There's, young guys who are starting to turn it on. There's veterans who are surprising. Who would be your top pickup at running back if you just had one? Kasey, I'm going to start with you.
Well, that's tough. I'll
give you 2.
Okay. In a PPR league, I think J.D. McKissick is a really good pickup in Washington. Again, 7 targets, 7 receptions. He's not going to get carries. But if you're in a PPR league, he gets you a touchdown just in the amount of catches he gets. I like Raheem Mostert in Miami. I know Chase Edmonds was the lead back week 1, but then Raheem Mostert out-touched him week 2. That could end up frustrating. I don't know if that was because they were trying to come back from such a deficit, which they did. But Mostert, again, he looked really explosive, and he's getting a lot of touches, 11 carries, 3 receptions, so he can help you too.
Ross, how about you?
As I mentioned in the show, Connor went down for Arizona.
So who's the pickup?
They're saying it's minor, but
we have a question coming in. Albert Mariquin is asking Darrell Williams a good pickup. So
I was going to say Benjamin because he went to Arizona State, and that's where I went to school too. So I'm saying Benjamin, but I like Williams too. I think either one of those guys, if Connor can't go this week and he needs somebody just to fill in as a streaker, pick up Benjamin. I'm leaning towards more Benjamin, but.
Williams and Benjamin had the same amount of touches. Williams got 59 yards and a touch on 8 carries and got the goal line carries. And I think that's important to know. Benjamin only got 31 yards on his 8 carries.
It's the goal line carry that
Yeah, and also like you got some carries for Atlanta, and he was like in the doghouse all preseason. I don't remember this. The rookie Tyler Alligar. I mean, this guy was drafted very highly. He was like the 6th running back on the depth chart in August, and I think they did on purpose just to motivate him a little bit. But he had 10 carries. He looked good, and I think he'll get the ball more. I mean, the more he shows promise, I think Atlanta will give him the ball. So. Those are the 2 running backs I like. Also, you can't dismiss Mark Ingram, 10 carries, 60 yards. What's that? Let me do the math real quick. That's 6 yards per carry. And
that wasn't actually that quick.
I mean, again, I know he was taking the Kamari's place, but long story short, I think him picking up as a handcuff is a good idea right now.
He's a great short-term fill-in. I'm going to put in a plug for the San Francisco running backs that are left standing. You got Jeff Wilson, who I don't know what his percentage rostership is. It's probably over 60%. But Jordan Mason is the other back because now we've got Tyrion Davis-Price has gone down with a high ankle sprain.
Yeah.
And there's only 2 running backs left, and Mitchell's already out. The San Francisco running game we know is good. Pick up those 2 players. If you can get your hands on both, you've got a good set of running backs for a while. To me, that's a good pickup. I also think Tyler Allgeier is going to emerge. So I'm glad you said that, Ross. His numbers didn't show us so much, 10 rushes for 30 yards. But it sounds like you're saying he passed the eye test.
Yeah, I think the coach has more faith in him now. I think he'll get the ball more.
Okay, one other guy to mention, though, is Jamal Williams. You guys, there was a famous DeAndre Swift explosion when I accidentally drafted him.
Auto-drafted.
It's not because he's not talented. It's because he is such an injury risk on top of the fact that the Lions, I think, could cap his value. Has he looked really good so far? Yes, he has.
As somebody who excitedly drafted Travis Etienne and is now paying the price for that, I wish I had DeAndre Swift because that's what I was expecting. You didn't draft
Travis Etienne when I drafted DeAndre Swift. But in the meantime,
DeAndre Swift's a good pick. It's not a trigger for you anymore. I can't say his name.
I'm gonna make one more plug while we're talking running backs. Leonard Fournette is getting like 25 to 30 carries a game. That's just not sustainable. Their number 2, Rashad White, is a really good rookie who I think if and probably soon Leonard Fournette breaks down for a few games, he's somebody, if you have room on the bottom of your roster, he's only 34% owned. He doesn't have numbers yet, but I just think he's a good running back who, when he gets his chance, is going to put up numbers.
Where did he go to college? I forgot.
Did he go to Arizona State?
He went to Arizona State, Kasey.
Does everybody go to Arizona State?
Only the best players go to Arizona State.
So I totally agree. Agree with you, Kasey, about Rashad White. I think he's one of the best backups that you can have. I've always been a fan of Alexander Madison. He did start some good games last year. He's another guy that I'd scoop up, but he's more one you're just hedging your bets. Whereas I think Rashad White, I do think he's going to end up playing because of those numbers. We've mentioned this guy before. Brian Robinson, of course, very well known for having gotten shot recently. But he's recovering well.
He's already doing speed and agility work.
He's on his bike, riding his bike around the track.
You can stash him. I don't know how he's 47% rostered, but there's lots of different leagues with different.
Well, if you have IR and you have 2 spots IR, it's a good. Like I said last week, it's a good place to put an IR as him. Obviously,
I agree. I don't think I ever finished my thought about Jamal Williams though.
Yeah, what is it?
Well, he's getting goal line carries, and DeAndre Swift is injury prone. If I'm a DeAndre Swift owner, which I am, I'm going to have Jamal Williams if I can, unless the league is really, really the benches are too thin. But I think he's a good pickup just on his own, and he even was last year. So, any other running backs to add, guys?
I plugged Khalil Herbert a little bit earlier when we talked about the Bears. He's another one. He's 48% owned. I think, David Montgomery it's going to be one of those frustrating backfields where I think you can't predict who's going to go, but I would still keep him on my roster in case Montgomery gets hurt or during a bye week. He's a really good fill-in.
Ross, anybody to add before we move on?
I watched. I'm embarrassed to say it, but I saw Penny for the Seattle Seahawks only had like a few carries, and Walker got a lot of carries. So I don't know what his percentage is. I know this is his first game playing for the Seahawks. He was hurt the first game, But I think if Walker, the rookie, is available, maybe you should pick him up and stash him somewhere because he could be the feature back in Seattle very soon.
I think that's a good idea, and I will say one other reason that is a good idea is he's got the draft capital for it. When a team invests that heavily in somebody, they're going to play him.
Yeah, I don't know I have no idea what his percentage. I didn't even look it up yet. I mean, I have him in a few leagues. I stashed him, but it's like I just know Seattle's not going to rely on Geno.
He's at 59%, so he just qualifies, Ross. Well done.
Just made it, but again, stash him. Seattle's going to throw the ball. They're not going to rely on Geno Smith and his arm. Trust me.
Okay, we're going to play a little game here at wide receiver. I'm going to ask you guys which rookie wide receiver is the one to have, if you can just have one.
Ooh.
Is it Garrett Wilson of the Jets? Is it Jahan Dotson of the Commanders? Is it Chris Olave of the Saints? I'd say George Pickens, but he's clearly showing that he's not ready for that yet.
Not yet. He will. I like him. And you forgot the rookie from Atlanta, London.
Drake London. I think he's the best of the bunch, by the way.
USC.
Well, but part of the reason I asked that is that I had Drake London ahead of these guys. I'm wondering who's next. So Drake London, I do agree. Drake London's at the top. Who of these three would you have next?
Case?
I'm going based on for this year, because obviously we're doing redraft.
2 years from now. I mean, you're sitting at home and this year.
I'm going to say Jahan Dotson of Washington. I'm a Penn State guy, so I'll admit my bias up front on that. But the guy has 3 touchdowns in 2 games. He's got a stable quarterback situation. I think Garrett Wilson is probably more talented all around. But Joe Flacco right now is throwing well. We don't know who Wilson's sleeping. I mean, how good of a quarterback he's going to be when he comes back. I like Chris Olave. I saw some stat. He had like 365 air yards in this week's game, meaning if he had caught all of the passes thrown to him or they were on target, he would have had 365 yards receiving. So he's another one. I don't think you can really go wrong. I just like Dotson best of the 3 of them because I think he's going to be the most reliable.
Yeah, Chris Olave had 13 targets. He only had 5 receptions, so that's why the air yards is so much higher than his 80 yards in the game. But he's getting targeted a lot. Ross, what about you for those 3?
I like Garrett Wilson. He showed me a lot. I watched some of that Jet game, and he looked really good.
Okay, just keep in mind that was against the Browns. I think I
know what you're saying, but I think the Jets. I think they're going to start throwing the ball more just because they have nothing to lose anymore. You know what I mean? It's like. Yeah. Either we throw the ball and try to win a game by scoring, or we lose. So there you go. So I think Wilson's going to have a really good year. I think he'll play. I think he'll get a lot of reps. I don't think the Jets are worried about trusting a rookie because they have nothing to lose.
No, I don't think it's anything to do with trusting Garrett Wilson. It's whether or not you trust Zach Wilson, because I don't think they're going to let Flacco play quarterback the whole season.
Oh no, Zach Wilson. I like what I saw from Zach Wilson last year. He showed a lot of promise at the end of the year. He looked really good. And his personal life. I don't know about dating his mom's friends. Listen, I'm staying away from that. But what I'm saying is this. I mean, this kid showed a lot of promise last year, and I like him. I mean, I think he's if you're one of these super leagues, I mean, the super, what's it called? Super
Flex.
League, super flex league. I mean, I wouldn't mind having him as my second quarterback. I mean, I'm really high on this kid.
Wow. Okay. All right. So I will say, I think Jahan Dotson is the safest bet. I think he's very clearly going to have a lot of value, but I think Garrett Wilson is going to have the biggest numbers of the 3. But they all look good. I mean,
they all look good. I mean, again, Drake London. I mean, you didn't mention Drake London, but he had 2 touchdowns yesterday. He looked great.
Well, we mentioned Drake London as being just above these guys already.
Yeah, he's a target monster already.
Yeah, I mean, I knew he was going to a big game just because he went to USC and he was playing in LA yesterday. So I took him in a lot of my leagues. I did draft him in some of my leagues, so I did start him. But I just knew he would have a big game. Not 2 touchdowns. I thought maybe just 1 touchdown, but he looked great.
By the way, I want to cycle back. We didn't answer Albert Mariquin's question whether Darrell Williams is a good pickup. I think we did kind of hint at it.
Yes.
I do think he's a good pickup.
Yes. I think he's a good pickup, but I wouldn't. I mean, I would monitor, obviously, Connor, because Connor is going to suck the value out of all of them if he can come back and play next week.
Right. So I think there are pickups that could be better, but I have no problem with it, and he would be the Cardinals back I would pick up. All right, we talked about some rookie wide receivers. Who are some other guys you have on your list, Ross? Where would you start?
I mean, the one who had 13 targets, he had 9 receptions and 95 yards. He never scores a touchdown, though, which makes me mad, is Jacoby Meyer.
I think he has one in his career.
I think he has, one. Thank you. Jacoby Meyer.
Probably against the Browns.
But, I mean, if you get the ball 13 times and if you get the ball targets 13 times, you're going to get a touchdown. And somebody else I mentioned last weekend, he's just like, I know they're not related, but Curtis Samuel, not Deebo Samuel, but he gets handoffs. Curtis gets handoffs also. And he had 7 receptions, a touchdown, and 78 yards. I like this guy. I mean, he's been in the league for a while. He's not a rookie. But he's, this guy and I think Wentz, they make a great combination. And I don't see his numbers going down. So if you need a receiver, Curtis Samuel will be my number 1 receiver to pick up for the week.
You were very high on him last week as well. So
yeah.
You're keeping bringing. Now, I checked very quickly about Jacoby Meyer's touchdown record. He has 2 touchdowns in his career.
Does he?
And guess what? One of them is against the Browns. I can't believe he didn't score them both against the Browns. Of course, the other one he scored was against Jacksonville. They give up a lot of touchdowns as well, but not this last week. 0. Other wide receivers you'd want to see on your team, Kasey? What are you seeing out there?
I didn't see many others. I got to be honest. I mean, Nelson Aguilar had a nice week this week, 6 receptions, 110 yards and a touchdown for New England. But I don't have a lot of faith in that New England offense. Aguilar has never been, he's been in the league for a while. I think he was with the Eagles for a while and never really developed there. So they shipped him off. It ended up in New England. If I remember correctly, watching the highlights, that touchdown was kind of not like kind of a fluky play where it was a lot of those yards were all in that play. So I like the rookies we talked about. My top pickups were Garrett Wilson, Jahan Dotson, and actually somebody I made fun of last week.
You did, and I want you to apologize right now on the air.
I owe Noah Brown an apology in Dallas.
You're that Noah Brown?
He did it again this week. Five receptions, 91 yards, and a touchdown. Now, it was against the Bengals, and we know that's apparently not a hard team to beat.
Champions.
But he's done it 2 weeks in a row. So maybe until Gallup comes back, this guy is a reliable number 2
so
or
now
flex.
You're on the Noah Brown train after you bashed him last week.
I admit when I was wrong.
The signs of somebody who can correct.
But it takes a man. It takes a man to say, "I'm sorry." I get it, what you did, and I think you motivate him a little bit. I know Noah Brown watches our show every week.
There you go.
I know you motivate him a little bit, and look what he did. So maybe you should talk trash again. Maybe he'll definitely 90 yards and a touchdown.
I mean, we talked trash about Cooper Rush, and look what he did to the Bengals.
Yeah, he was an All-Pro against the Bengals. Unbelievable.
Wait until he plays the Browns. We have a couple of corrections in terms of percentages. Chris Olave, who we mentioned, is 62% rostered. By the way, Curtis Samuel is up to 70%.
Yep.
Technically, we shouldn't even be recommending him that much. But it shows people are listening to you already, Ross. They listened to you last week. I will mention Nico Collins. He's another young receiver. He had 9 targets, 4 receptions. Davis Mills is not that bad of a quarterback, actually. I mean, the Texans are going to be throwing the ball a lot. So you could do a lot worse than Nico Collins. You could also probably do a lot better than him, but sometimes you're looking for that fill-in that can help you. I'd probably rather have him than somebody like Nelson Aguilar, who I just don't trust New England. Nelson Aguilar is constantly overperforming, and we should give him proper credit for that, but it's the New England offense I'm worried about. Any other wide receivers to talk about before we move on to tight end?
Isaac McKenzie, I don't know how serious Gabe Davis's injury is. He's inactive tonight, but if Gabe's out for a while, I have no idea. So you got to check this out. McKenzie will be the number 2 wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills. So he could be a good pickup for you, but that all depends on Gabe Davis's health. So there you go.
All right, let's move to tight end, guys. Obviously we know tight end is a bit of a crapshoot, but there's actually some decent options out there considering what it is to be a tight end in this league. Kasey, who would you start with as a recommendation?
I have 2. I like Logan Thomas in Washington. I'm a big fan of the Washington offense right now, I guess. I mean, Jahan Dotson, we talked about Curtis Samuel and Carson Wentz, and Logan Thomas is another example of that. He is, I think, a top 10 tight end so far this year, got another touchdown this weekend. And Evan Ingram, the Giants' cast off, went to Jacksonville, and he's getting 8 targets a game. He caught 7 of them for 46 yards. He didn't get in the end zone. 46 yards isn't something to wow you, but if you're in a PPR league and you get 7 receptions, that's 7 points right there just from the receptions alone. So that's double-digit points.
Ross, how about you?
I, too, had Logan Thomas. I'm a big fan of the Washington Commanders. See, I didn't say Redskins. And
Did I say that?
I didn't say it. Gerald Everett, he's probably over 60%, but just in case if he's not, he had
57%.
I know. I'm just going to say him anyway because he's something that was on nobody's radar when the season started. No one said, oh, you got to draft Gerald Everett. No one said that. But he had 7 receptions last week and 71 yards for a tight end. And obviously the Chargers love him a lot because he's out there like 90% of the time. So those are like the 2 pickups I like. I mean, it's kind of like with tight ends this year, unless you have a top tier guy. And Kyle Pitts, guys, if you know any Kyle Pitts owners that want to trade him, let me know because he hasn't had anything the past 2 weeks. I know the owners are getting really anxious. So it could be a good time to try to trade for Kyle Pitts because he's going to start blowing up very soon. But the owners I know are very upset. So go get him.
I like that. This isn't just a waiver wire show. We talk about guys to trade. We talk strategy, all kinds of different things. Taysom Hill, I still have to bring him up. I know
what do you do with him? In all seriousness, he
played like 6 snaps.
He did.
I know. I wouldn't be comfortable starting him, but I still want to have this guy on my bench because if he starts getting a role,
I think he's a good guy if you're in a best ball league. I don't know if I necessarily.
Those leagues are over with, Casey. You can't do any more best balls. They're all locked up.
Well, I think he's somebody to keep on your radar. I'm also a big fan of Logan Thomas. I always have been, and he's always performed.
He gets hurt. I mean, guys, I'll tell you right now, he's not going to play the whole season. So I'll tell you that I can predict the future. I'm like Carson with the thing on his head. I can tell you exactly what's going to happen to Logan Thomas. He'll play 6-7 games, then he'll get hurt for a few games. He'll come back. So just be aware of Logan Thomas and his health.
All right. I don't know what you meant by Carson with the thing on his head.
Remember, like he did the thing with the cards, went like this.
Johnny Carson.
Oh yes. Okay.
Johnny Carson wins.
I thought you were getting confused about the swamp.
What was that name? What's the name of that character he did, Casey?
That's a little before my time, Ross.
I don't know.
Okay.
Wait, which character? Who did what?
Johnny Carson.
Remember, he predicted the future, and he had like.
Oh yeah.
Wasn't that the original Swami?
Yeah, but he had a certain name. I'll let you guys know next week. Keep going.
Well, I think we're basically done with tight end. There isn't that much there. But now here's the question. Are we even going to bother with kicker and defense?
Yeah, I'll run through real quick. Atlanta is playing Seattle. Pick up the Atlanta defense. Seattle's horrible. They're not a good team. They're going to turn the ball over a lot. Atlanta's not a bad – they almost beat the Rams. That was another – they missed – they could have beat the Rams. They came close. And I'm going to say it because I love Case. The Giants are playing Monday night, Casey, next week. I don't know if you're aware of this.
I know.
And they're playing Dallas. I like the Giants team.
I know.
I'll take it. And
Wink Martindale trying to shut down the Cowboys. By the way, Ross Karnak the Magnificent.
Yeah, that's it. Karnak. I'll have some. I'll do some Karnak next week.
Sounds good.
So, and the kickers, I like Will Lutz for New Orleans. I think New Orleans offense is not doing that great in the red zone, so they got a lot of field goal attempts. And a team that scored a lot last week, I think they scored the most points, is the Miami Dolphins. I like Jason Sanders. I like him a lot too. So those are the pickups I have. If you guys play kickers, I'm sure most leagues do. And defense, it's going to be a weird week next week. There's a lot of great matchups, and a lot of defenses will get beat bad next week. Trust me.
It's all about the matchups, but. That's why when the Browns couldn't even be started against the Jets, I was like, I'm not ever starting that team.
So let me ask you a question. If the Browns, let's say the Browns go on a winning streak and they make the playoffs, will you root for them?
I mean, that's like asking if dinosaurs came back. Like, That's not happening.
Well, they're 2 years removed from the AFC Championship game.
They are, but they're starting Jacoby Brissett, and they are so incompetent.
But by then they'll be starting Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
You know what? Deshaun Watson's career is probably going to be ruined even more than he already ruined it himself by playing for the Browns.
But he's got $240 million guaranteed.
Guaranteed, Kasey. Yep, guaranteed.
Listen, I'm telling you, the Browns mess up everything they do. I'm not even being – I know this sounds like I'm being really negative, like I'm upset. I'm actually just being a realist. This is an organization that is just a flaming –
But I think you're doing it psychologically. And listen, I'm a trained doctor just like Kasey is. I think you're just saying this so you don't have any like – you don't feel bad when they lose. So if you can detach yourself from something that's negative – and they're not, and you know they're going to lose, and you're detached from it, you're not going to have any negativity.
No, you're right. You're right. I wish they were good, and I suppose in that way I'm still a Browns fan, but I am not investing in it.
Well, Kasey and I are going to analyze your wishing why you're not a Browns fan anymore.
We'll follow this over the years. We'll see. Do I actually become a Bills fan that roots against the Browns? I don't know if I can.
You've never even been to Buffalo. You've never been to Buffalo ever in your life, correct? Yes or no?
That's actually true. I have not.
Okay, so you've never been to Buffalo, so all of a sudden you're a Bills fan. You've never been to a Bills football game.
Yeah, but the Bills are my kind of team. You know, they're my kind of team because they've had it rough. They've lost some really close. I need to root for an underdog, and when they finally win, it'll be really exciting.
So be a Lions fan.
Listen, I just left the Browns. You want
Let's
me to go
get
to the Lions?
you DeAndre Swift jersey.
I have to send him one.
That would be hilarious.
I'm going to buy one for you, like decided. Okay, guys, I think we're done.
This is it.
We'll see everybody next week.
We'll see you next week. We are here. I stumbled on the time at the beginning. I don't know why I wrote it up wrong in my notes, but 8:15 p.m. Eastern, which is 5:15 Pacific. The math still works. And we look forward to seeing you there. Please put your comments below. We love to talk fantasy sports with you. Football season is still young. Lots of waiver wire to follow. Make sure you're following who to pick up. You need that waiver wire to win. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. I will see you all next week.